reborn to the day our sisters were sold. My elder sister pushed me toward that cold, bloodthirsty young general. My younger sister, beautiful and docile, would surely serve the general well. In my past life, my sister coveted the general's handsomeness, and willingly pushed me toward a poor scholar. Later, that scholar passed the imperial examinations, rose swiftly through the ranks, and became a high-ranking minister. But my sister was tortured to death by that gloomy young general. So this time, she intends to choose anew. What she doesn't know is that I was born with a destiny of wealth and honor. Whomever I marry will soar to great heights. What she knows even less is that I've been waiting for this day for a very long time. When my sister wept and begged the young general to buy me, I knew she too had been reborn. 3 months ago, our father committed a grave crime, bringing guilt upon the entire Shin household. All male members were sentenced to military exile, while the women were branded as lowly and sold into slavery. My sister and I, being unmarried, were consigned to the imperial brothel to become courtesans. Today was the day we were put up for sale. If someone chose to buy us, it would mean rescue from our misery. On this very day in my past life, the young general had originally intended to choose me, but my sister shoved me off the high platform, breaking my leg. She got her wish and left with the young general. Yet her life in the general's mansion was no paradise. She spent her days locked in rivalry with a harem full of beauties. Later, the frustrated young general joined the third prince's failed rebellion. As a traitor, he died under a hail of arrows. My sister, in turn, was sent back to the Imperial Music Bureau. By then, my husband Wen Qinghe had risen to the position of chancellor, second only to the emperor himself. I too had long since been granted noble status as a lady of the court. Consumed by jealousy, my sister knocked me unconscious and dragged me back to our old home. She set it ablaze, intending to perish with me. When I awoke, we had returned to this very day. As the young general raised his finger toward us, my sister pushed me forward, sobbing, "General, my sister is beautiful and gentle. You will surely love her." The young general's gaze was deep as the sea, his expression unreadable as he looked at me. Then, he nodded. "Then her it is." I watched my sister weeping bitterly, a faint smile playing on my lips. She embraced me with deep affection and reluctance. "Sister, you must be obedient and sensible. Serve the general well. If you live well, I will have peace of mind." Her sacrifice was deeply moving. Those around us were visibly touched, praising her as a wonderful sister. But only I heard her whisper in my ear, "Gu Yanji is a rare gem of a husband. Go enjoy your blessings, little sister. Wen Qinghe is mine." She was smug, believing that by choosing a new life, she would surely become as glorious as I had been in my past life, honored with an imperial decree and unmatched splendor. But she didn't know that Wen Qinghe wasn't the scholarly and military genius the world claimed him to be. He was a drunken, gambling fool, a complete incompetent. The only reason he passed the imperial examinations and rose so swiftly through the ranks was because I was there. In other words, no matter whom I married, that man would soar to great heights. I followed behind Gu Yanji as he walked with his hands behind his back, his pace neither quick nor slow. Along the way, every commoner who encountered him would tremble with fear and hastily step aside. Watching this, I couldn't help but feel tears welling in my eyes. Whether he sensed it or not, Gu Yanji suddenly stopped and turned to look at me. I met his gaze and held back my tears. "Gu Yanji, with me by your side this lifetime, you will never be frustrated or unfulfilled. You will certainly not become a traitor or a rebel." Following Gu Yanji, we walked in silence all the way to the mansion. After instructing the stewardess to arrange my quarters, he departed. I felt no urgency to speak with him either, so I followed the stewardess to my lodgings. Along the way, she cautioned me according to protocol, Never disturb the general. If you anger him, punishment would be the least of your worries, losing your life would be a far greater loss. I muttered under my breath, if you don't want women seeking you out, then why keep so many concubines? The general's residence was vast. As we walked through it, nearly every small courtyard housed women. Guyenji had no legitimate wife, these women were all his concubines. In my previous life, the moment my sister entered the household, these women ganged up on her, subjecting her to much suffering. Guyenji never once stood up for her. Sure enough, as soon as I finished dressing, 7 or 8 women entered. They scrutinized me like goods being appraised. One particularly alluring woman asked, "Daughter of a disgraced third-rank official? What crime did your father commit? Embezzlement? Fraud? Rebellion? Treason?" True to her upbringing, a woman in red stepped forward, pinching my cheek. "Your bearing and looks surpass ours," she sneered. "I wonder if your skills in pleasing men are equally superior." They all burst into laughter, their voices dripping with vulgarity. Finally, I understood why my sister had clashed with every one of them in my previous life. These women banded together to bully newcomers, giving anyone who entered a taste of their power. I flung the woman's hand away and said coldly, "If you have nothing further, I'll be resting. When I have time, I'll pay each of you a visit. You dare strike me?" The woman raised her hand and slapped me across the face. "You worthless slut. Still thinking you're some noble lady." My tongue touched the stinging cheek. In my past life, I was meek. Even when bullied by my sister, I'd swallow my anger, afraid to cause trouble lest I be called unreasonable. Later, supporting Wen Qinghe in his official career, I'd seen enough of the world's vile creatures over 12 years. I was no longer the Shinrong who let others manipulate her. I sprang up and returned the slap. What followed was a brawl I hadn't anticipated myself. By the end, the women fled with hair disheveled, screaming for help at the gate. I grabbed the woman who'd slapped me by the hair, dragged her to the courtyard entrance, and tossed her out. From now on, if any of them dares to bother me again, I'll beat them every single time. I flung the handkerchief I'd been using to wipe my hands at the woman's face. Just as I turned to close the door, I suddenly spotted Guyenji standing by the roadside. Someone must have reported the disturbance to him. I had no idea when he'd arrived. He stood with his hands behind his back, watching me with an inscrutable expression. My heart skipped a beat. This is bad, I thought. Before I even had a chance to speak with Guyenji, I'd already given him the impression of being hot-tempered. I wondered if he would drive me away. I sighed. What a terrible start. The concubines also spotted him and swarmed toward him, wailing and whining. "General, you must stand up for us." Guyenji watched me silently, his eyes radiating a cold, murderous intent. I recalled my sister's description of him: when he's silent, you fear him. When he speaks, you fear him even more. She said Guyenji was a ravenous beast that devoured its prey whole. At first, she'd even dared to dream of winning his favor. But later, she couldn't even bring herself to think about it. Now, whenever she saw him, she'd rather take a detour. Everyone in the courtyard fell silent under his gaze. Those who brawl shall receive 60 lashes. Repeated offenses will result in expulsion. Guyenji gave me a calm, unruffled look before sweeping his sleeves and leaving. After enduring 60 lashes, I lay listlessly on my bed, flipping through a book. True to his reputation as the iron-faced general, he showed not the slightest mercy. Just as drowsiness overtook me, an old servant announced my sister had come to visit. She carried 2 pounds of cakes, dressed in a new skirt, her face rosy like a peach blossom, radiant with springtime charm. "The general's residence has many rules," she lectured. You can't act as freely as you did before. Look, you've offended so many people since entering the estate. Those 60 lashes were well deserved. He knows exactly what kind of man Guyenji is. Yet deliberately says such things just to provoke me. I couldn't be bothered to respond. My husband may be poor, but he treats me exceptionally well. Ignoring her didn't stop her from boasting. In a few months, the imperial examinations will be held. By then, I'll be the wife of the third-place scholar. Just thinking about it makes me excited. He hasn't even taken the exam yet. And you're already certain he'll be the third-place scholar? I raised an eyebrow at her. She faltered, her eyes darting nervously before she declared, "Of course! Qinghe is a genius, brilliant in both military strategy and scholarship. He could easily be the top scholar, let alone the third-place laureate." My sister beamed with confidence, left 2 pounds of cheap pastries, and strutted off triumphantly. She truly treats Wen Qinghe like a precious treasure. No matter, her good fortune won't last long. Convalescence was tedious. After counting the days, I sent my maid to inquire about sister's affairs. She returned with news that Wen Qinghe had bought a courtesan from a brothel to be his concubine. Sister wailed and raged, even beating the woman. I chuckled. This was only the beginning. Had she already lost her composure? Wen Qinghe was only truly poor, everything else about him was a sham. After my injuries healed, I took my maid out and spotted my sister. She was having tea with Wen Qinghe's classmates' wives. On her wrist, which she'd accidentally exposed, I clearly saw large bruises. Wen Qinghe had beaten her. In my past life, Wen Qinghe had also laid hands on me. At first, I was too timid to retaliate, enduring it all. But after finding Master Lu, I gradually gained the courage. When Wen Qinghe struck again, I slapped him back. After a few such incidents, Wen Qinghe dared not make a scene in front of me anymore. My sister isn't one to take things lying down. But now, for the sake of becoming the wife of a top-ranked scholar, she has no choice but to endure. "Miss, are you buying fabric to have clothes tailored for the general?" the maid asked me. I shook my head. "I'll make them myself." The maid gave me a strange look. For the fabric I bought was for men's wear. Everyone else is scheming to get close to the general. But you're the most honest. You never go out. So the general doesn't even remember you. I'll stay out of this commotion, for I have better avenues. As the new year approached, I donned my newly made men's robe, affixed a false beard, and slipped out through the side gate of the general's residence. After buying a flask of wine and 2 knives of meat, I stopped before a dilapidated courtyard. Knocking on the door, an old man with a white beard appeared. The old man must have been 70 or 80. His head full of white hair and his face deeply lined with wrinkles. Yet his eyes were remarkably clear. He looked me over. "Who are you looking for?" "Master, I've finally seen you again." I bowed to him and said I was my father's student. I'd heard he'd returned, so I'd come to pay my respects. I cooked his favorite braised pork belly, and he praised it endlessly. I didn't stay long, promising to return the next day to cook again. I came back every day for 7 days. On the 8th day, I met someone at Mr. Lu's house. "Xiao Rong." Master waved at me. "This is General Gu. He's come to pay New Year's respects to this old man. Make extra dishes today, we'll have a drink together." Finally, he'd arrived, carrying 3 cuts of pork belly and 2 bundles of vegetables. I looked at Gu Yanji. He glanced at me, paused, then nodded. "All right. I'll start cooking now," I said. Once the meal was ready, the 3 of us sat at separate ends of the table. Mr. Lu and Gu Yanji discussed court affairs. Mr. Lu advised General Gu, "Since you can't accomplish anything, You might as well do nothing at all. I hear you keep over 10 concubines. Why not indulge in some pleasure? Gu Yanji found himself in a most awkward position. Once a trusted minister favored by the emperor, his sister's plot to murder a prince and concubines had been exposed. She now languished in the cold palace. And he, implicated, had been stripped of every title, reduced to a figurehead with no real authority. In his previous life, from this moment until his death in rebellion 10 years later, his existence was perpetually weighed down by his sister and nephew, leaving him perpetually frustrated and unfulfilled. During these 10 years, 2 pivotal events altered his fate. By redirecting the course of these 2 occurrences, I could reshape his destiny. As for the rest, I wished to remain uninvolved. The first event was the spring hunt. The third prince and the emperor encountered a wild bear in the woods. The third prince abandoned the emperor and fled alone. Upon returning, knowing he was in the wrong, the cowardly and timid prince actually claimed Gu Yanji had instructed him to do so. The emperor, who had intended to reinstate Gu Yanji, naturally abandoned the idea. Please eat, sir. I broke the heavy silence, serving Gu Yanji another dish, this time without chili. General, please eat more. Gu Yanji glanced at me, raising an eyebrow. You know I don't eat spicy food? Everyone knows the general's preferences. He. Gu Yanji gave me a thoughtful look. After dinner, I offered to play chess with him, and to my surprise, he didn't refuse. Gu Yanji was an excellent player. His moves crisp and decisive. We were well matched, so we became engrossed in the battle, losing track of time. When we finally snapped back to reality, night had fallen. Gu Yanji and Mr. Lu took their leave. I hurriedly asked, General, shall we continue tomorrow? He looked at me with a faint, ambiguous smile. You enjoy playing with me? Yes. Playing with the general is quite interesting. Gu Yanji curved his lips slightly. I have matters to attend to tomorrow. What kind of matters? Do you need help? Gu Yanji glanced at me and murmured, I'll come tomorrow. The next day, Gu Yanji truly did come. After dinner, I brought out the chessboard and called him to play. I chattered away, trying to find things to say, while Gu Yanji responded with occasional, half-hearted replies. The atmosphere was surprisingly pleasant. On the 5th day of the first lunar month, as I left the general's residence through the side gate, I was spotted by the concubine involved in the earlier altercation. She reported me to the steward, who reprimanded me and had the lock on the side gate replaced. That afternoon, I broke my promise and didn't go to Mr. Lu's place. That night, out of spite, I beat up that concubine named Lu Yao. But strangely, the next day, the lock on the side gate was gone again. When I happily went to Mr. Lu's place, Gu Yanji was already there. Didn't you come yesterday? He asked. Yes. I had some matters at home. I waved the groceries in my hand, fish heads for lunch, fish head and tofu stew. As I bustled about in the kitchen, I glanced up to find Gu Yanji leaning against the doorway, arms crossed, silently observing me. Is the general hungry? The meal will be ready shortly. I smiled. Suddenly, he said, I had Lu Yu remove the lock. I froze, staring at him, utterly dumbfounded. He seemed amused by my expression. Just because he wore a beard in men's clothes, he thought he was a man? I swallowed hard, my lips twitching. The general had seen through me all along, Shenrong. My disguise was so perfect. His expression was teasing. You overestimate yourself. Not very clever at all. Just as I opened my mouth to speak, the kitchen knife slipped in my hand, slicing off a chunk of flesh from my finger. Blood gushed instantly. He stepped forward, cupping my hand. His brow furrowed. Rinse it first. I brought healing powder. He held my hand, scooping water to wash the wound. He sprinkled the powder over it. The astringent sting made me tear up. He glanced at me. Hurt? I nodded. It hurts like being whipped. He paused, looking at me. Are you complaining about unfair treatment? I shook my head. I wouldn't dare complain. Whatever the general does is right. He pursed his lips. You fought. Don't you deserve punishment? I pouted. Is the wound better? I nodded. Yes. But it still hurts on cloudy days or when it rains. He frowned, his expression softening slightly. Let's go. I trotted after him. Where? Where are we going? No cooking today. I don't want certain people complaining I'm mistreating her again. He walked ahead, hands behind his back. I trailed behind him, eyes downcast. Snow began falling outside. He produced an umbrella from somewhere and paused to wait for me. I hesitated to approach. His brow furrowed, his expression fierce. Come. I obediently followed. The streets were nearly empty. He walked at a steady pace, neither fast nor slow. Snow fluttered onto the umbrella's paper, making a soft rustling sound, as if isolating us from the world. I bought you back with no ulterior motives. You needn't go to such lengths to please me. After a long silence, he suddenly spoke. Aside from being my concubine, you may ask for anything else you desire. I kept my head down, sensing this was a golden opportunity. Just as I pondered how to broach the subject of the spring hunt, his voice tightened with irritation. Why are you crying? I'm not crying. I began to explain, but then flicked my eyes and forced a single tear to well up as I looked at him. His frown deepened. He sighed. Fine. Do as you please. Really? Whatever I want. I smiled. General. I'm hungry. Please treat me to a meal. He shot me a sideways glance, sighing helplessly. You're pushing your luck. I trailed behind him with a smile. I want fish head soup. I didn't get to eat the one bought today. But if we leave, the master won't have lunch. You talk too much, he said, tilting the umbrella slightly toward me. I've already sent someone to prepare lunch for the master. I gave him a thumbs up. The general always thinks of everything. I held back a smile. You're quite skilled at flattery. As the spring hunt drew nearer, I stayed home each day waiting for Guyenji instead of going to the master's quarters. Outside the study, I knocked several times before a voice answered from within. Pushing the door open, Guyenji looked at me, his gaze drifting to the food box I carried. I approached with a smile. It's the soup the general loves most. Best enjoyed while hot. Guyenji propped his cheek as he watched me. I held out the bowl. Want me to feed you? To my surprise, Guyenji shot me a disapproving look before taking the bowl and drinking it himself. I sat across from him, watching him. Even his movements while drinking the soup were elegant, every gesture radiating an air of noble refinement. Have you had enough? Guyenji asked me. No. I shook my head, regretting the words the moment they left my lips. Blushing, I looked at him. He lowered his eyes to sip his tea, his tone calm. I am not a suitable match for you. You needn't waste your thoughts on me. I nodded. Then the general has permitted me to stay in the manor for 2 years. After 2 years, I will leave. Is that acceptable? Guyenji looked at me, puzzled. Because after 2 years, the 2 major events affecting your destiny will have passed. I too will have achieved my goals and can retire. I promise. After 2 years, I will definitely leave. I will not bother you. His brow furrowed slightly, his tone a bit sharp. As you wish. With his assurance, I felt instantly relieved. He wouldn't drive me away before I achieved my goal. Thank you, General. I'll be going now. This meant I wouldn't have to deliver soup daily. I could simply remind him when the time came. Yet, he appeared several times before my courtyard gate. I stepped out to ask, General, do you need something? He glanced at me, hands clasped behind his back. This is my own home. Is it not permissible for me to stroll about freely? Oh, of course. Take your time, General. He gave me a deep look before sweeping his sleeves and walking away. The maid wondered, why does the general seem a bit unhappy? Probably still frustrated about not being reinstated to his former position. I sighed. Just a few more days, and it'll be fine. The next day during my walk, I encountered Gu Yenji again. We met head-on, and I stepped forward to greet him. Gu Yenji coughed twice, deliberately chatting with me for a moment before coughing several more times. The general seems ill, the maid said with concern. Then I'll send him some cooling soup tomorrow. I sighed. The following noon, I brought another pot of soup to Gu Yenji. He seemed in good spirits. This soup is excellent. Bring more tomorrow. I stared at him in surprise, then couldn't resist tasting a bowl myself. Nothing special. Really. Back in my quarters, my maid was astonished. The general has never accepted soup from anyone before. Impossible. Didn't Liu Yao and the others bring him some? The maid covered her mouth with a knowing smile, pulling me outside the main courtyard to watch the commotion. Sure enough, Liu Yao appeared carrying a food box toward the main hall, only to be turned away before even reaching the gate. Perhaps the general had business today and didn't want to be disturbed? I whispered. After being turned away, Liu Yao, seething with anger, actually rallied her clique to cause trouble for me. They played the sisterly act. All sweetness and niceties, and even laced my teacup with a potion. Naturally, I didn't drink it and sent them all packing, but I never expected to fall into their trap. The next day, my face broke out in a rash. Upon investigation, I discovered they'd sprinkled some powder on my pillow, trying to ruin my appearance. Furious, I grabbed the pillow and sought them out. I pressed their faces against it and rubbed them raw. Learn from the past, not the punishment. If they wanted to disfigure me, then we'd all be disfigured together, no one would escape. The courtyard echoed with wails and cries for mercy. Just like last time, they stood there with disheveled hair, sobbing and demanding the general intervene. After the beating, I felt relieved, but Gu Yenji had been alerted. The scene repeated itself. I dared not approach Gu Yenji, thinking, if he wants to whip me, let him whip me. I'm not afraid of being expelled. After all, this grievance had to be settled. Gu Yenji coldly ordered, follow protocol, 60 lashes each. Then expel them from the estate. He swept away, and guards stepped forward to lead Liu Yao and the others out, leaving only me behind. I was utterly stunned, and not just me, Liu Yao and the others were equally astonished. General, why didn't you punish Shinrong? The general is biased. General, we know we were wrong. Gu Yenji didn't even turn back, leaving Liu Yao and the others crying where they stood. My maid exclaimed excitedly, the general treats you differently. In the afternoon, a physician came, examined my face, left some ointment, and instructed me on how to use it. Liu Yao and the others were truly banished. After they left, my days grew comfortable, no more quarrels or disturbances. Only fine meals and even more luxurious fabrics for my clothes. The maid smiled and said, you wouldn't know since you never go out. But word is spreading that the general is utterly captivated by you. He drove away all the women in the courtyard just for you. Favoring only you. Favor me? If I weren't thick-skinned, he'd have sent me packing days ago. That evening, Gu Yanji returned and handed me an invitation. Lady Wang was hosting a flower viewing banquet, and my sister would be attending. Wait, is my status even appropriate? Though I'd been removed from the registry, I remained the daughter of a disgraced minister, unfit for such formal occasions. To my utter surprise, Gu Yanji accompanied me to Lady Wang's flower banquet. The moment we arrived, all eyes turned to me with curiosity. Gu Yanji whispered, "Are you afraid?" The ladies and young misses attending the banquet were all familiar faces from when I accompanied my mother on outings. Only now, times had changed, and my status had become awkward. If the general isn't afraid, what have I to fear? I replied with a bright smile. He snorted coldly, his voice muffled. They should be afraid of me. I chuckled. Thinking about it, he was right. Nowadays, Gu Yanji was notorious, a figure everyone feared. Then, the general and I truly were a pair who made everyone uncomfortable upon seeing us. Gu Yanji suppressed a smile and turned to leave. I watched him depart, then turned to find my sister's icy glare fixed on me. When she saw me looking at her, she switched back to a smile and approached. I never imagined Gu Yanji would not only dismiss his concubines for you, but also bring you to this flower viewing banquet. It seems my worries were unnecessary. I smiled and asked, "What exactly were you worried about?" Her expression turned cold before she forced another smile. But don't get too carried away. Gu Yanji's mood swings are unpredictable. He may be kind to you today, but tomorrow he could turn on you and have you killed. Oh, thank you for the warning, sister. I tilted my head at her. But how do you know General Gu is so unpredictable? I recall you didn't know him before. Her expression stiffened, and she gave a dry laugh. Rumors circulate in the capital. Who doesn't know? Those rumors are untrue, I said with a smile. The general is very gentle. The warmth vanished from sister's face. She swept her sleeve aside and snapped. Gentle or not, you're still just a concubine. If you're so capable, make him marry you. What's there to be proud of? She stormed off. Watching her furious retreat, I felt elated. I smiled and went to greet the other ladies. They wanted to avoid me but couldn't quite bring themselves to do so. So their attitudes were lukewarm at best. I didn't care. My focus remained fixed on Lady Yang. As the wife of Yang, the commander of the Imperial Guard, Lady Yang seldom mingled in the ladies' circle due to her husband's position. Moreover, both Yang and his wife came from humble origins, and their lack of socializing also carried an air of being shunned. My purpose today was clear. The upcoming spring hunt required guards arranged by Lord Yang. After the incident in my past life, only the Emperor, the third prince, and Lord Yang were present. Lord Yang hadn't uttered a single word in support of the third prince. This left the third prince flustered, causing him to blurt out accusations that dragged Gu Yanji into the scandal. This time, I deliberately sought to cultivate a good relationship with Lady Yang, drawing on my memories and understanding of her from my previous life. I catered to her preferences. Within half an hour, she had set aside the gap in our social standing and was already addressing me warmly as sister. On the way back, I brought up the banquet conversation. Lady Yang mentioned the spring hunt on the 22nd day of the first lunar month, adding that her husband had been extremely busy lately. Gu Yanji remarked indifferently, "The imperial examinations are this year, so His Majesty moved it up by half a month." The emperor hadn't summoned him to accompany the prince, and Gu Yanji had no desire to go anyway. After all, even stripped of his official position, he had plenty of ways to attend if he wished. "Will you be attending, General?" I asked, feigning eager anticipation. "I've heard there are pheasants in Yulon Mountain. I'd love to see them." Gu Yanji looked at me with surprise. My words were both abrupt and presumptuous, utterly unlike me, so his reaction was understandable. I played dumb, gazing at him expectantly. Then I'll have someone bring you a pheasant, Gu Yanji said. Ah. It seemed he still didn't want to go. Now, my only hope rested with Lady Yang. Fortunately, Lady Yang did not disappoint me. A few days later, the transfer order arrived at the general's residence. Commander Yang invited Gu Yanji to assist with the spring hunt and guard deployment. When the order arrived, I was in Gu Yanji's study. He held the letter, silently observing me. You've been courting Lady Yang just to get me to the spring hunt? I nodded. I want the general to personally shoot a pheasant for me. Gu Yanji stared at me intently, silent for a long while. I breathed a sigh of relief. With Gu Yanji here, the events of my previous life would never repeat. The day of the spring hunt arrived swiftly. Gu Yanji departed for the hunting grounds a day early. He didn't bid me farewell before leaving, but I didn't mind. I waited at the manor for news of him. I remembered clearly that in my previous life, the incident had occurred on the second day of the hunt. After it happened, the emperor had immediately set off back to the capital. After 3 days of waiting with no word, I breathed a sigh of relief. I waited another half-month before Gu Yanji finally returned, carrying a pheasant in his hand. I lifted my skirt and ran toward him. General, you're back. He stopped and smiled, slightly opening his arms. I rushed over, pointing at the pheasant in his hands. General, you're amazing. You really caught a pheasant. He withdrew his arms, his smile fading. You like this bird that much? Yes. It's beautiful. So lovely. I called out to Steward Liu. Quick! We're having chicken tonight. Gu Yanji watched me with a peculiar expression. I was too overjoyed to notice his look. I'd altered the course of events. If things went smoothly, Gu Yanji should soon regain his former position. Then, once the remaining matter was resolved, I could retire with my mission accomplished. Sure enough, 3 days later, Gu Yanji was reinstated. His Majesty treated him as before, on his first day back from the government office. I personally prepared several dishes for him. He looked at me and said, "You seem happier than I am." Of course. My general's reinstatement was cause for celebration throughout the realm. I smiled at him. Gu Yanji took a sip of wine, his cheeks flushing slightly. By late February, Gu Yanji began preparing for the imperial examinations. When they commenced mid-March, the entire capital seemed to fall quiet. Miss, today I saw your sister reserve a banquet at Spring Delight Pavilion for the end of the month. It seems Mr. Wen is quite confident of passing the highest rank, the maid said. I sipped my tea, inwardly amused. That good-for-nothing Wen Qinghe? Forget third place, he wouldn't even pass the imperial examination. As for why he became third place in my past life, it was because after I became Master Lu's disciple, he predicted dozens of exam questions. I answered them. Master Lu revised them, and finally had Wen Qinghe memorize them all. The coincidence was that Master Lu guessed correctly. So Wen Qinghe passed the examination and became the third-place scholar. In this life, without me and Master Lu, he has no chance of passing. Only my sister truly believes Wen Qinghe is both talented and handsome. In my past life, marrying Wen Qinghe was simply good fortune. When the imperial examination results were posted at month's end, as I'd predicted, Wen Qinghe failed to make the list. He didn't care, knowing his own limitations. But my sister couldn't bear it. She'd long prepared herself to become the third-place scholar's wife. Then the chief minister's wife. Now her pipe dream had shattered. Unwilling to accept defeat, she actually beat the drum to lodge a complaint, accusing the spring examinations of fraud. The scandal grew immense. The court launched a thorough investigation, which naturally uncovered no wrongdoing. Both my sister and Wen Qinghe were imprisoned in the Ministry of Justice. A day later, my sister sent word through an intermediary, requesting to see me. It was my first time inside a Dali temple cell. My sister sat on the floor, hair disheveled, visible wounds on her face. Wen Qinghe crouched in the corner, his face and arms covered in scratch marks. Seems I missed a marital brawl. Shin Rong! My sister spotted me and charged forward, fury boiling. Had the bars not separated us, I'd have sworn she intended to kill me on the spot. Why is it different? She demanded. I frowned. Different from what? Don't play dumb with me. At the flower viewing banquet last time, I saw how close you were to Lady Young. I figured it out, you reincarnated just like me. My sister reached out to strike me. And why didn't Wen Qinghe pass the imperial exams? In my past life, he was the third-place scholar. You must have tampered with the results. Watching her, I suddenly recalled when we were 5, playing in grandmother's room. She shattered grandmother's vase. Fearing grandmother's scolding, she claimed I'd broken it. As grandmother struck my palm, she slapped me across the face too, calling me naughty and disgraceful to the eldest branch. She's always been like this. Never changed. All the good things are hers. But when trouble arises, she immediately shifts the blame onto others. I sneered coldly. Listen to yourself, what are you even saying? The imperial examinations? As if I could possibly rig those. Then why? Why? She screamed. Want to know why? I'll tell you. I was born to bring fortune. No matter whom I marry, he'll rise to great heights, soaring like a phoenix. So, I murmured. In my past life, when Qinghe passed the imperial exams because he married me, I helped him achieve that glory. I supported his ascent. He was fortunate to meet me, not the other way around. This time around, you married him. So naturally his luck ran out. My sister glared at me viciously. Suddenly, Wen Qinghe burst from the corner, clutching the railing and staring at me unblinkingly. You. Have we met before? I feel like I know you so well. I gave Wen Qinghe a deep look, then turned and walked away. Sister and Wen Qinghe called after me, but their shouts soon devolved into a quarrel. They hurled accusations at each other. Days later, their punishment was finalized. Someone interceded for them. Sister received 30 strokes of the court cane, while Wen Qinghe was permanently barred from the imperial examinations. After his ban, Wen Qinghe shed all pretense. He spent his days carousing with his low-life friends, drinking and reveling. Returning home, he flew into a rage at the sight of my sister. Regardless of her severe injuries, he beat her mercilessly, taking his frustration out on her. That night, I dreamt I was back at the Shin residence. Father returned from the magistrate's office, and the 3 of us siblings gathered around him chatting. Mother sat nearby, smiling at us. When I opened my eyes, tears streamed down my face. Gu Yanji was busy, and I hadn't seen him for several days. That day, a maid returned and told me Wen Qinghe had been arrested and sent to prison. Imprisoned again? I was stunned. For what? The maid explained, he caused a disturbance at Drunken Spring Pavilion while drunk and accidentally killed a courtesan. I sighed. In my previous life, when Qinghe was riding high at this very moment, the literary genius and socialite everyone admired. This time around, he'd sunk into the mire, likely never to rise again. 2 days later, Gu Yanji unexpectedly returned home early from the magistrate's office. He summoned me to his study. And when I pushed open the door, I was surprised to find my sister there too. So Gu Yanji was the one protecting them. The moment my sister saw me, tears streamed down her face. A pitiful sight. Ronger, your brother-in-law. She trailed off. I have nowhere else to go. I can only come to you and the general. With that, she knelt before me, sobbing as if pear blossoms were falling with her tears. Rong. In this world, you are my only family left. Her tearful plea wasn't truly meant for me, but for Gu Yinji's benefit. Having lived in the Gu household for 6 years in my previous life, she surely knew Gu Yinji yielded to softness, not force. Perhaps she also knew he was powerless against a woman's tears? I knew this well, for I'd used this tactic on Gu Yinji many times before, succeeding each time. I figured a beauty like my sister weeping would be even more effective. Sure enough, Gu Yinji frowned with concern, glancing at me. Shenrong, you decide whether to keep her. He feigned concern, asking, if you didn't want to keep her, why bring her back? This is the general's home. Naturally, the general makes the decisions. I replied gruffly, out of Gu Yinji's sight. My sister smirked triumphantly and whispered to me, I bet he'll keep me. Little sister. He was once my husband too. When he saw me at the gate today, he brought me right back. I frowned and swept my sleeve, turning to leave. Shenrong? Gu Yinji called after me. I paused and said, I don't want to keep her. If the general wishes to keep her, then so be it. No sooner had I spoken than Gu Yinji ordered, Lu Yu, escort her out. I froze, turning to stare at him in shock. Had he truly only sought my opinion? Sister was clearly stunned too, calling out, General. But Gu Yinji ignored her completely. It's you. Sister glared at me, her eyes flashing with malice. Ever since we were children, you've envied me, unable to bear my happiness. And now it's still the same. You wretched woman. She lunged forward, raising her hand to strike me. Before I could brush her away, she flew backward like a kite whose string had snapped. Gu Yinji stared at sister with a dark expression and barked, Someone, throw her out. No, General. You can't do this to me. In my past life, we were husband and wife. She was married to Wenqinghe. She never loved you. General. My sister screamed. Gu Yinji watched as my sister was dragged away, his brow slightly furrowed. You say you married Wenqinghe? I shook my head. Impossible. She's gone mad. Talking nonsense. Gu Yinji still looked displeased. I quickly ran away. But when Gu Yinji's coldness wasn't directed at me, it felt rather pleasant. Having averted the first crisis, I began plotting Gu Yinji's second and most insurmountable obstacle. His sister and nephew. In my previous life, it was precisely because of consort Zhuang and the third prince that he remained perpetually frustrated and unfulfilled. In the end, the third prince dragged him into a rebellion, leading to his tragic demise. Asking Gu Yinji to abandon his sister and nephew was exceedingly difficult. Having lost his mother at a young age, he was raised by his sister. To him, her kindness was greater than the heavens. Yet neither the third prince nor consort Zhuang were the primary figures in this matter. I was waiting for that person to appear. Before that, I needed to prepare for the future. So I sought out Master Lu. Master Lu had been my father's advisor. In my past life, I sought him out and begged to become his disciple. This lifetime, I did not formally apprentice myself to him, nor did I approach him as second mission. Now, I wished to be open with him. When he saw me remove my hat, he smiled. I recognized you the moment second miss arrived. He said, where in this world could there be such a strikingly handsome man? I blushed deeply, recalling what Gu Yinji had said that day. So, dressing as a man was just me deceiving myself. Master Lu burst into hearty laughter. Master, I said with a smile. I wish to engage in trade. Master Lu was both surprised and delighted, eagerly asking what kind of trade I had in mind. Silk and tea. I murmured. I also aim to venture into maritime trade and have already identified several suitable ships. But at present, I have no one to employ, and it's not appropriate for me to take the lead myself. So, Master Lu agreed immediately, saying he would be willing to act as my representative. In my past life, I clearly remembered the Emperor opening maritime trade mid-year. It lasted only briefly before closing again due to rampant coastal pirates. But that single year was enough. Merchants who caught that wave in my previous life made a fortune. And I, and the future Guyenji, needed money. But do you have the money? Borrow it from the general. I said with a smile. Mr. Lu pointed at me. Second young miss. Your audacity grows by the day, borrowing money from the general. That evening, I prepared several pastries, waiting for Gu Yenji. Yet he didn't return until well past midnight. Dozing in the parlor, I was startled awake by a light tap on my shoulder. Why aren't you asleep? The general had returned. I shoved all the pastries from the table toward him. Hungry? Eat before you rest. Gu Yenji reluctantly accepted 3 or 4 boxes. Had he waited until midnight just to bring me sweets? He sat down, wearing an expression that said he saw right through me, waiting for me to continue. I poured him tea and pressed another pastry into his hand. General, lend me some money. Gu Yenji chuckled. I knew you weren't being this kind. I am. I haven't seen you in days. Seeing you tonight makes me especially happy. Smooth talker, he remarked. How much? I held up one finger. 10,000 taels. 1-year term. Next year, I'll repay you with 100,000. Gu Yenji eyed me. Who are you doing business with? I'll have someone go over the details with you. Fearing he might refuse, I walked behind him, steeled my resolve, and began massaging his shoulders. With Mr. Lu, we're doing maritime trade. I've already picked out the ships. Just waiting for the funds. I bent down to look at him. General, everything is ready, all we need is your favor to seal the deal. Gu Yenji glanced sideways at me, his eyes flickering, his ears flushed crimson. He rose abruptly, avoiding me, and headed toward the exit. As he walked, he called out, Lu Yu, fetch 10,000 taels for second mission. My eyes lit up. The general is lending me money? He took a step back, as if afraid I might pounce on him like a wolf. Borrow it. If it's not enough, come find Lu Yu. His slight embarrassment made me laugh. Thank you, General. You're the best person in the world. I'll repay you handsomely. Gu Yenji swiftly disappeared into the courtyard. Lu Yu handed me 10,000 taels in banknotes with a smile, whispering, only you could speak to the general like that without him getting angry. I chuckled. Gu Yenji is quite interesting. Things proceeded smoothly. Mr. Lu and I grew busy, and I still occasionally disguised myself as a man to accompany him on business trips. By mid-June, everything was ready. True to expectations, His Majesty issued the order to lift the maritime ban. We were well prepared, having recruited the finest crew and purchased ships at the lowest possible prices. We were the first to set sail. When the ships returned 2 months later, we had tripled our capital. I carried a pile of imported goods to Guyenji. These imported goods, I've specially reserved for the general. I laid them out one by one on his desk. He could keep them for himself or give them away as gifts. He looked at me. You're so tanned. Did you personally run the ships? I touched my face, then found a mirror to examine myself closely. I had indeed darkened considerably. No big deal. I look good with a tan, right? Gu Yinji toyed with the snuff bottle I'd brought, humming softly through his nose. I leaned in, smiling. General, are you free tonight? I'd like to treat you to dinner. Gu Yinji raised an eyebrow. Made some money and now you're throwing your weight around? Do I need to throw my weight around to treat the general to dinner? Whenever you want to eat, I'll treat you. Gu Yinji's lips curved into a smile. I reserved several tables at the restaurant. As soon as Gu Yinji arrived, Mr. Liu and the staff all stood up. I introduced him to everyone. A cook auntie whispered to me, General Gu? Isn't he your man? I quickly covered the auntie's mouth. Don't say such things. The general isn't my man. The auntie wasn't convinced. Madam, a man as handsome as the general, could it be you don't fancy him? I'm not the one who's not interested, he's the one who isn't interested in me. I shushed her. Let's eat. Enough of this. The auntie gave me a pitiful look. Madam, then you should use some feminine wiles to charm the general. Finally getting her to drop the subject. I took a sip of tea to steady my nerves. Turning around, I found Gu Yinji had seated himself beside me. He sat upright, sipping his tea. His face showed nothing, but his ears were flushed red. When did the general arrive? My lips twitched. He shot me a sidelong glance, suppressing a smile. A long time ago. I covered my face, wishing I could vanish into a crack in the ground. Behind me, someone chuckled. The next day, I quietly packed my belongings and left. Better to avoid the awkwardness for now. I didn't return until after the New Year celebrations, selling all my ships before the maritime ban took effect. Mr. Liu and I headed back to the capital. Before returning to the general's residence, I retrieved the money to repay Gu Yinji. General, I've come to return your loan. He lifted his gaze from a mountain of documents and looked at me. I smiled as I placed the wooden box containing the silver notes before him. The 10,000 taels you lent me, plus the interest I owe you, it's all here. He flipped through the notes. 10,000 taels? 10 times the amount? No need for formalities. General, there will be many uses for funds in the future. Besides, I sat down before him. In my business dealings, I'll still rely heavily on your influence. Consider this money an equity stake, your dividend. If he assists the third prince in the succession struggle, 10,000 taels won't be nearly enough. Then you'd better make good use of my influence, or you'll be the one losing out. Gu Yinji smiled, a rare occurrence. Only then did I notice how handsome he looked when he smiled. I stared blankly for a moment. Gu Yinji cleared his throat, his gaze settling on my clothes. I looked down and saw 2 snags in my sleeve. I was mortified. He raised an eyebrow. The palace bestowed many bolts of fabric on the ladies. I gave them all to you. I was astonished. Was the general planning to marry? Why would the palace suddenly bestow women's fabrics upon him? Gu Yinji's face darkened, and he ignored me. Returning to my quarters, I was stunned. I'd expected only a few scraps. But instead, a table was piled high with 2 or 3 dozen bolts. The maid smiled and explained. While you were away, the general brought them back, sometimes 1 bolt, sometimes 2. The general personally collected them? The maid nodded. Later I learned these fabrics weren't even given to him by the palace. He'd been actively taking them from the imperial household department. Whenever fashionable fabrics arrived from Jiangnan, he'd go and get some. Now the staff at the imperial household department avoid him whenever they see him. Even the imperial consorts and the harem have started murmuring about Gu Yinji, because he always picks the very best. Avoiding maritime trade, Mr. Liu and I planned to venture into the tea silk business. We were constantly scouting shops and traveled out of town before the Dragon Boat Festival. By the time we returned, the festival had passed. Miss Shin, You're back, Manager Liu said with a smile. We thought you'd return for the festival. The general waited for you to dine, staying up until midnight. I paused, wiping sweat from my forehead. He waited for me? Indeed, Liu confirmed. My oversight. Is the general at home? He is. I changed clothes in my room and hurried to Guyanji's study with gifts. Pushing open the door, I smiled. General, I brought you. My words trailed off as I realized the figure inside wasn't him, it was Dais. My heart leapt. The one I'd been waiting for had finally appeared. Dais was Guyanji's childhood friend and also Consort Zhuang's lover before she entered the palace. After Consort Zhuang was selected for the palace, their relationship faded away. Later, Dais traveled alone across the land, writing numerous travelogues that earned him great prestige among the common people. After many years away, he suddenly returned to the capital. Upon his return, he frequently associated with Guyanji and later befriended the third prince. It was because of him that the third prince rebelled. After the rebellion failed, Dais, on his deathbed, still muttered the Empress Dowager Zhuang's name, spouting nonsense about how they couldn't be together in life. When I heard it, I found it utterly ironic. The third prince's rebellion dragged Guyanji into ruin and cost so many innocent lives. Yet the instigator's motive was purely love, merely the desire to see his beloved one last time in his lifetime. Dais froze upon seeing me. You are second Miss Shin? I nodded. Dais must be 22 this year. The same age as Guyanji. 2 years younger than Consort Zhuang. His skin was tanned from years of travel. Yet his features and bearing remained undiminished. No wonder people in my past life jokingly called Dais a deeply affectionate handsome man. Please sit. Dais was very warm. I've heard Miss Shin's business is vast. That your hands can turn stone into gold. I've always wondered what kind of woman could possess such ability. Meeting you today has truly broadened my horizons. I smiled. Mr. Dai. You flatter me. Dais looked surprised. You know me? I nodded. Mr. Dai. Your name is renowned. I've read your travelogues. Dais grew even more enthusiastic, rising to sit beside me and chatting animatedly about business. A thought struck me, and I smiled. Sir, having traveled far and wide with such broad knowledge, you'd surely have an advantage over me in trade. Dais' eyes lit up. That is precisely my intention. These years of travel have broadened my horizons. I've come to feel that in life, one must leave something behind for future generations. Otherwise, we come and go like a passing breeze, like fleeting smoke in clouds, leaving no trace, a true regret. I feel the same way. Even with silver in hand, should my family or country face hardship in the future, contributing my modest strength would mean my life wasn't lived in vain. He seemed to have found a kindred spirit, instantly connecting with me, his eyes brimming with admiration. Truthfully, now that Guyanji has returned to the court and the third prince is under his tutelage, better than in my past life, Dais' influence has dwindled. Still, just to be safe, I should keep an eye on him. So, I'm giving him something to occupy his time. When people are busy and have new pursuits, love and romance cease to be the sole focus of their lives. He probably won't incite the third prince to rebel anymore. We were deep in conversation when Guyanji returned. You know each other? Yanji. Dais is delighted. To think your family harbors such a gem as the second young miss. We truly wish we'd met sooner. Guyanji shot me a surprised glance. Mr. Dai is witty and humorous, with vast knowledge. It would be my honor to do business with him. Today, I'll treat us to dinner at Yefeng Tower. Dais smiled. Second miss. You must grace us with your presence. I naturally accepted. Dais seemed to think of something else. Yanji. If you have business to attend to, Go ahead. The second miss and I will dine together. We can continue our conversation when you're free. Gu Yanji frowned, glancing at me before muttering, You're going to dine with him? I nodded. He looked displeased. As I rose to leave, he called after me. What's that in your hand? Oh, a gift for the general, a pendant to wear on his belt. I handed it to him. He caught it with fluid grace, then glanced at Dais' empty hands, a smug curve touching his lips. I murmured in apology. I didn't make it back for the Dragon Boat Festival. I'm truly sorry for keeping you waiting, General. His expression hardened again. Who said I was waiting for you? I wasn't. I have matters to attend to. I must leave now. He turned back to Dai-situ. I've arranged lodgings for you. You are not to stay here. Dai-situ muttered. I always stayed at your place when I came back before. Why can't I now? Dai-situ and I chatted all afternoon, making plans. That evening, we went to Yefeng Tower for dinner. Just as we sat down, Gu Yanji arrived. I noticed the pendant I'd given him at noon was now hanging at his waist, perfectly complementing his new outfit. Dai-situ looked surprised. Aren't you supposed to be leaving on official business? Haven't you departed yet? Not for now. Gu Yanji stroked the pendant at his waist as he sat down beside me. His gaze fell on the candied chestnuts by my hand. I smiled. Mr. Dai bought these for me. Care to try some? General? He frowned. You like chestnuts? I nodded. Without a word, he took the paper bag and began peeling the chestnuts with deliberate slowness. Before I knew it, the entire bag was gone. Stunned, I watched as he casually remarked, Finished. I'll buy you another bag later. Oh. I could only nod. The mighty Gu Yanji competing with me for chestnuts, no one would believe it if I told them. Since when did you start liking chestnuts? Dai-situ asked, puzzled. You never ate them as a kid. You thought they were too much trouble. Gu Yanji shot him a glance. People change. Dai-situ stared at him with a strange expression. After dinner, Gu Yanji took me to buy 10 bags of chestnuts. After that day, Gu Yanji, usually so busy, suddenly found himself with free time. For reasons unknown. Whenever Dai-situ came to the house, he would always return. I wasn't in the mood to pay attention to him anyway, being consumed by business in the capital. We hadn't opened any shops there before, but now we'd opened 2 in quick succession. One was an herbal medicine shop, the other a tea house. Dai-situ secured the connections for the medicine, I lacked such networks. As for the tea, the shopfront was merely a front, our primary business was supplying the aristocratic families. We were constantly swamped with work. Dai-situ was exceptionally capable, especially skilled at dealing with people. His silver tongue could handle any situation, and I admired him greatly. Just tea leaves won't suffice. Do you mean we should add silk as well? Have you established connections with all the aristocratic families? I inquired. What's so difficult about that? Dai-situ replied with a smile. If the second young miss wishes to become an imperial merchant, I can make it happen. Sir, you possess extraordinary talent. I bowed respectfully. Mr. Lu also holds you in high esteem, while the world admires Mr. Dai. I once dismissed it. Now I see I was blind. Mr. Dai. Mr. Lu. And I discussed traveling to Jiangnan mid-year to secure silk suppliers. Upon returning to the general's residence, I informed Gu Yanji of my Jiangnan trip. His brows furrowed deeply. Why send you alone? Neither he nor Mr. Lu can go. I paused from my accounting to look at Gu Yanji. I wish to learn from Mr. Dai. His business acumen surpasses mine. Gu Yanji sat across from me, a book in hand. His face tense as he pondered something. He remained silent for a long while. Before departing for Jiangnan, a major event unfolded. Consort Zhuang emerged from the cold palace. I observed Dais's reaction. He seemed much the same as always. But Consort Zhuang was anything but quiet. The moment she left the cold palace, she began stirring up trouble. Sometimes I think it's only natural. Back then, she and her brother relied solely on each other. If Consort Zhuang hadn't been so fiercely assertive, they likely wouldn't have survived. Inviting me to the palace? I looked at Manager Liu, utterly baffled. Does Her Majesty have instructions for me? Steward Liu trailed off mid-sentence. It was likely about the general's marriage. Gu Yanji was away on official business outside the capital. I had reason to suspect Consort Zhuang had seized this opportunity to summon me to the palace. I couldn't refuse. I packed my things and prepared to enter the palace. Just before entering, Dais suddenly came to find me. He stammered and hesitated, saying nothing, then finally swept his sleeve and left. This was my second encounter with Consort Zhuang. The first occurred in my previous life, after when Qinghe was promoted to chief minister, when I saw her at the Empress's banquet. That banquet left a deep impression on me because she had splashed wine in Consort Liang's face and was reprimanded by His Majesty. I was astonished then. After over a decade of ups and downs in the harem, having been confined to the cold palace twice, why could she still so easily provoke the emperor's anger? My impression of her then stemmed entirely from her temperament. Her beauty hadn't particularly struck me. But seeing her today, I was startled by her beauty. No wonder a woman of humble origins, barely literate, once held the favor of the entire harem. This face, even I found myself mesmerized by it. It made sense. With a brother as dashing as Gu Yanji, how could his sister be anything less? Consort Zhuang spoke with blunt directness and rapid cadence. This palace intends to find Yanji a wife of equal standing. Your unrecognized presence in his household is no longer fitting. Thus, this palace grants you 3 days to vacate the general's residence. Until Yanji's wedding, you are forbidden to associate with him, lest you jeopardize his marriage. Should you comply, this palace will show you due respect. Refuse, and I have ways to deal with you. She slammed down her teacup, her gaze piercing as she fixed it upon me. If you truly love him and cannot let go, I'm not closing all doors. Wait 3 or 5 years until his legitimate son is born and grown. Then, I shall arrange for you to become his concubine. Well, say something. You're as silent as a stump. Consort Zhuang frowned. What could I say? I could only agree. This humble maiden dares not disobey your highness's command. However, upon leaving the general's residence, it would be proper for me to await the general's return and report to him. I rose and replied. She waved her hand. Go your way. He won't miss you. I know my brother best. He's been cold and indifferent since childhood, feeling little for anyone. Don't harbor any misguided feelings for him either. Your social standings are too disparate, he'll never care for you. I nodded in agreement once more. After saying this, Consort Zhuang had me escorted away. Returning to the general's residence, Dais was still there, urgently asking what I'd discussed with Consort Zhuang. I relayed her words to him. He flashed a smile uglier than crying. She hasn't changed a bit, still so blunt. I paused and looked at him. He scratched his head, visibly uneasy. I've liked her since I was a child. She's beautiful and capable. As I grew older, I dreamed of marrying her. Dais sighed. But fate is cruel. Someone, seeking favor with His Majesty, gave her 5,000 taels to enter the palace. Without a second thought, she gave every last coin to Yanji and left that very day. All these years, I've longed to say goodbye. In my dreams, I chase after her, calling her sister, asking why she left without a farewell. Did she ever think of me once in all this time? That youthful affection became his obsession. I too sighed softly. I suppose for her, love meant less than a steamed bun to fill her belly. You've never known want since childhood. But she, so young, had to feed two mouths. She simply had no leisure to ponder emotions. Dais gazed up at the sky. After a long while, he wiped the tears from the corners of his eyes and sighed wistfully. You're right. These years, I've been too stubborn. What's wrong with seeing her once? Never mind whether she remembers me or not. Even if she does, what difference would it make? In her life, there are many people she must consider. But I certainly won't be one of them. I handed him a handkerchief, but he waved it away. Talking to you has lightened my heart considerably. But these are secrets you mustn't tell anyone. Not even Gu Yenji. I shushed him. Don't worry. I won't tell a soul. Daisita smiled and ruffled my hair. You're such a little rascal. If Yenji doesn't like you, it's his own fault for having bad taste. I agree, both siblings have something wrong with their eyes. We both burst into laughter. Just then, Gu Yenji returned. Standing in the doorway, he glared at us with displeasure. Aren't you heading to Jiangnan? Why haven't you left? Gu Yenji pushed Daisidu aside and stood between us. I'm waiting for Rongrong to leave with me. Daisidu replied. If I go alone, she'll be lonely. She has no family, no one to care about her well-being. Gu Yenji's expression darkened further. She lives in my house. Of course I'll take care of her. Daisidu retorted. Have you taken care of her? You'd never show concern, you never have since childhood. Gu Yenji tried to speak, his lips twitching several times. But he couldn't refute it because Daisidu was telling the truth. You can leave now. Gu Yenji dismissed them. Sensing the tension, I decided to step away. I'll go cook. I'll help you. Daisita slipped away too. I prepared 4 dishes. When they hit the table, Gu Yenji's expression darkened further. Why is there chili in everything? Gu Yenji had been injured, and the doctor had strictly forbidden him from eating spicy food. Daisitu, however, had a very strong preference for heat. These are all my favorites. Daisitu declared happily. Tucking in. Gu Yenji hadn't touched a single bite. I cautiously suggested. Should I go cook the general a bowl of noodles? The corner of his mouth twitched upward. Fine. I had no choice but to prepare noodles for him. While I was busy, he appeared at the kitchen doorway. Did Consort Zhuang summon you to the palace today? Yes. I was just about to tell you about it. I repeated Consort Zhuang's words to him. His brows knitted tightly. So, you plan to move out? Yes. The 2-year agreement I made with the general is nearly up. It's the perfect time to leave. Once this busy period passes, I plan to travel northwest to find my parents. I never thanked you. I murmured. I know all about how you've been looking after my parents. He remained silent. Since my rebirth, I hadn't inquired about my parents or eldest brother. I knew they were under Gu Yenji's care now, their lives were safe. And they hadn't even suffered much hardship. In my previous life, after the disaster struck home, I was frantic. I urgently sought out my father's advisor, Mr. Liu, begging him to save my family. Mr. Liu said he'd tried to find help, but his influence was limited, and he could do little. So I threw myself into assisting Wen Qinghe, hoping he'd rise quickly in rank and use his position to rescue my family. The following year, when I finally managed to track down news of my father, brother, and mother, I discovered they hadn't suffered at all, they were actually living quite well. I never knew who had been secretly aiding them. It wasn't until Gu Yenji's incident that I learned from Mr. Liu, the person helping us was Gu Yenji. Not only did he assist my parents, but he also deliberately arranged for me and my sister to be purchased from the Imperial Music Bureau and supported when Qinghe's political career. He did all this without seeking anything in return. Only after his death did I learn the truth from my father. In other words, in my past life, without Gu Yanji, my entire family would never have survived, let alone reunited. Therefore, in this life, I must repay his kindness with equal benevolence. A kind and warm-hearted person should never be met with the cold indifference of the world. Now, both events that altered his fate differ from the past life. I have no reason to remain by his side any longer. Rong Rong. Dais served me food and poured me wine. Once we reach Jiangnan, I'll take you to savor its delicacies and admire its scenery. He rambled on about Jiangnan. For some reason, he seemed unusually excited tonight. Calling me Rong Rong over and over, it gave me goosebumps. As I listened, I glanced at Gu Yanji out of the corner of my eye. His face was ashen. Suddenly, he slammed his fist on the table. Dai Situ, come with me. Dai Situ's voice cut off abruptly. Could you wait a moment? I still have things to discuss with Rong Rong. Gu Yanji stood motionless at the doorway. Dai Situ dared not disobey, lowering his head as he followed Gu Yanji out. A moment later, Gu Yanji returned, but Dai Situ was nowhere to be seen. Where is he? I asked. He had urgent business and must travel for several days. Gu Yanji remained expressionless. You care for him? I froze, then shook my head. No. He's just a friend I get along with. Why does the general ask? Gu Yanji's expression lightened. Nothing. Just a passing question. I lowered my head to eat. After a while, he suddenly added, I've spoken with consort Zhuang. Who I marry is none of her concern. If she summons you in the future, you needn't heed her. Oh. I paused, looking up at him. Whom does the general intend to marry? He gazed at me, then suddenly tapped my head. Eat. Several days later, I bid farewell to Gu Yanji and departed for Jiangnan with Master Lu. No sooner had I left the capital than I spotted Dais crouched by the roadside. Weren't you out on business? Why are you squatting here? Dais shot me a resentful glance. Gu Yanji got jealous and chased me away. I froze. Jealous? Dais jabbed my forehead. You two, one stubborn, one dense. My heart skipped a beat. Gu Yanji likes me? Come on. Let's get going. The sooner we return, the sooner we can drink at your wedding banquet. Dais chuckled. I turned to look back toward the capital, my emotions suddenly in turmoil. The journey south went smoothly. After securing several suppliers, we even took time to sightsee. By the time we returned, 2 months had passed. While in Jiangnan, I wrote to my parents, sending them gifts and promising to visit by year's end. Dais chartered a boat. The journey was leisurely, the scenery along the way pleasant. When we docked for a meal, we overheard people discussing the Prince of Liang. Last month, the prince and his heir died together. His 7 remaining sons are in utter chaos. Fenglin is in turmoil now, don't go there. Startled, I strained to listen. Why did they die suddenly? Some accident? Someone asked. It was over a concubine of the Liang kings, a woman named Shen. She seduced the crown prince, and the king discovered it. The speaker sighed. Father and son must have fought fiercely before both met their ends. The storyteller painted the scene vividly, more gripping than any opera. Your sister? Dais whispered to me. I too sensed that the concubine in these rumors was likely my sister. The day we disembarked back in the capital, the weather was fine. We found an inn for a meal. When I stepped out to wash my hands, a figure flashed past ahead of me. I didn't catch a clear look, but as I returned, Someone suddenly struck me from behind with a club. After that, I knew nothing more. When cold water doused me awake, it was deep into the night. By moonlight, I surveyed my surroundings and recognized this as my family's old residence. Before my father's promotion, we'd lived here as a family. I knew this place intimately. Moreover, in my previous life, my sister had chosen to die here with me. My sister stood before me, a cold smile on her lips. This life doesn't count. We start over. Start over? I leaned back in my chair, glaring at her. If we do it again, who will you choose? She bent down, closing in on me, her eyes bordering on madness. Gu Yanji, you're just using your past life's memories to help him, making him see you differently. I can do that too. Gu Yanji will like me too. He'll treat me well too. I laughed. And if that still doesn't work, how many times do you plan to reincarnate? Or are you so certain heaven will grant you a third chance? Do you know what the difference between us is? She narrowed her eyes at me, murder in her gaze. I spoke slowly, enunciating each word, no matter how many times you reincarnate. It's always for yourself. Whether you fight for Gu Yanji or Wenqinghe, it's all for yourself. If not for yourself, then for whom? Sister lit the firelighter. Die. I'll choose again. I'll choose again. I'll choose again. She repeated it over and over, flinging the firelighter onto the tung oil-soaked haystack. I closed my eyes. If I truly died today, I had no regrets. I had repaid Guyanji's kindness. He would surely continue caring for my parents and brothers. The flames leapt up. Sister suddenly panicked, rushing toward the door. She screamed, "Why must I die? If you die, I can take your place. I don't have to die. I don't need to die." She charged toward the doorway, then abruptly retreated, backing step by step. "General! General! General! You've come to save me, haven't you? I know you must remember our past life. You must still care for me." Gu Yanji shot her a cold glance before turning to face me. I looked up at him, momentarily speechless. He scooped me up horizontally and carried me out. Flames had scorched the roof, and the house collapsed with a thunderous crash. My sister's cries for help echoed from within, growing fainter by the second. "General." I stared at Gu Yanji as if in a dream, unsure whether the memories of my past life were real or if this moment was the truth. "MHM." He nodded. "Are you hurt?" I shook my head. But the next moment, I fainted in his arms. When I awoke again, Gu Yanji sat by my bedside. The light was dim and yellow. He leaned against the chair, playing with the pendant I had given him. Seeing me awake, he asked in a hoarse voice, "Thirsty? Want some water?" "Yes." I nodded. He helped me sit up to drink water, then supported me against the headboard. "The doctor examined you," he murmured. "The injuries aren't severe. Rest for a few days and you'll recover." "How did you know we were there?" I asked him. "Guessed," he replied casually, running his fingers through my hair. "Did you handle the matters in Jiangnan?" I nodded. "What's next? Planning to go northwest to see your parents?" I nodded again. "Then I'll go with you." "I want to meet them too," he said firmly. I looked at him in surprise, about to speak, when Dais pushed open the door. "Rong Rong. How are your injuries? It's all my fault. If I hadn't been so careless, this wouldn't have happened." "It's not your fault. She'd have found a way to lose it eventually." Dais sat on the bedside, glancing between me and Gu Yanji. What was Yanji saying earlier? Going to the northwest? Son-in-law paying respects to father-in-law? Don't talk nonsense. I glared at Dais. He really had no filter. MHM. Gu Yinji looked at me and murmured, "I'm not just paying respects. I intend to formally propose to Magistrate Shin." My face flushed instantly. Looks like I'll be attending a wedding banquet soon. I need to think about what grand gift to bring. Dais ran out with a suggestive grin. The room fell heavy. I was at a loss for words. Gu Yinji cleared his throat softly and asked, "How about next month?" "Huh? Going to propose next month, do you think that's feasible?" I turned my head away, my heart pounding. He held my hand. "I've prepared quite a bit these past days. Once you're feeling better, you can go see if you're satisfied." "Prepared what?" I stared at him in surprise. "The wedding arrangements. And the gifts for meeting your parents." He murmured, "You prepared all this already? When did you start?" His gaze flickered, yet his grip on my hand didn't loosen. His ears gradually flushed crimson. After a long pause, he muttered, "A long time ago." He hesitated, then pressed, "Do you want to see it?" I burst out laughing. "See it? Of course I want to see it. A marriage is such a significant matter, I must oversee every detail carefully." Story extra. I lost my parents at a young age. From the moment I could remember, only my sister was by my side. To keep me alive, she endured countless hardships, and her nature inevitably became more straightforward and fiery than that of ordinary women. If she had remained an ordinary woman, it wouldn't have mattered. But she entered the palace and became a consort, and her fiery nature became her weakness. After she entered the palace, I threw myself into martial arts and scholarship, desperate to become someone who could protect her. I succeeded, but by then, my sister had already endured much suffering within the harem. Sometimes I think her confinement in the cold palace was a blessing. Her fiery spirit might actually survive longer there. So when the emperor passed judgment, I made no attempt to intervene. This outcome was for the best, both of us remain alive. But her actions implicated Shin Jihao. My visit to the Imperial Music Bureau stemmed from guilt. Shin Jihao served as an upright and incorruptible official, though perhaps too rigidly principled. Such integrity inevitably drew envy. Caught in the palace's power struggles, someone dragged him into the fray, fabricating a charge. Countless others then piled on, transforming him from a third-rank official into a prisoner. I secretly arranged everything for him and settled all the female relatives sold into slavery from the Shin household. Only the two Shin family daughters at the music bureau were under close watch, forcing me to choose one. Either of them could follow me. For the rest of her life, I would protect her until she chose to leave. After I arrived, the eldest Miss Shin seemed reluctant to be purchased by me. She pushed Shinrong toward me, so I took her instead. That day, as we left the music bureau, she followed at a distance behind me. I expected her to weep or show fear, but she walked with remarkable composure, never servile, never arrogant, as if she held a clear vision of her future. This was quite interesting. She had a stubborn temper. On her very first day in the mansion, she got into a fight, 1 against 7. Quite the feisty one. It reminded me of my sister. She'd been like that since childhood. Even after entering the imperial harem, a single disagreement would send her to blows. So I punished Shinrong, to make her remember. Fighting isn't a commendable way to get things done. I thought she'd learned her lesson and would be quieter. But then she disguised herself as a man to seek out Mr. Liu. The moment I saw her, I knew it was Shinrong. She even tried to be mysterious, using a man's name. Still, her chess skills are impressive, and she's an excellent cook. When I exposed her disguise and she stared at me in shock, I recalled her feigned composure on that first day. The stark contrast amused me. I told her she needn't waste her efforts on me. I had no desire to marry. nor to burden anyone. I couldn't even control my own life or death. How could I possibly marry, have children, and bring them into this world? Yet she persisted, delivering soup daily and setting a 2-year deadline. I didn't mind, let her stay if she wished. Besides, her soup was delicious. Strangely, after that day, as if her goal achieved, she stopped bringing soup. I hesitated to ask why, so I walked past her courtyard several times. But she seemed oblivious. Oh well, no soup doesn't mean no food. But that night, she came again, smiling sweetly and trying to please me just like before. I felt a bit annoyed, but seeing her smile melted all my anger away. What's the point in holding a grudge against her? Madame Wang sent an invitation. I'd always declined before, but this time, for some reason, I really wanted her to go. She was Miss Shin, born into a scholarly family. Only because of someone's slander did she end up like this. So I wanted her to appear before everyone, to show them that even as a prisoner, she was doing well. But she seemed unconcerned, chatting only with Madame Yang. Later I learned it was for my sake. She said she loved pheasants and asked me to bring her one back. That day, for some reason, I hunted countless game but couldn't find a single pheasant. In the end, I traded 2 deer for a live one. I carried the pheasant home, excited like a young boy, eagerly anticipating her reaction. When she ran toward me, I thought she'd embrace me, but instead, she only noticed the pheasant. She praised the pheasant profusely, then immediately had Liu stew it. Later, whenever she said she liked me or praised me, I'd think of that chicken. When I was reinstated to my post, she cooked a feast, looking happier than I was. She even excitedly declared I was her family's general. Her family's general. That night I got drunk. The next day, I quietly had Liu prepare for our wedding. Dais appeared. They hit it off. The smile on her face was far brighter than when she was with me. I couldn't stand Dais. She even suggested moving out. I knew my sister had only encouraged it, she was simply going with the flow. She wanted to leave on her own. Only now did I begin to regret it. I shouldn't have been so absolute back then, saying I'd never be moved by her. That I'd never marry. I didn't know how to bring it up. Day and night, I couldn't rest. The words were on the tip of my tongue, yet I couldn't utter them. After she went to Jiangnan, the men I sent to protect her kept sending me news of her. She was traveling everywhere, clearly happy, though I longed to see her. Knowing she was content, I felt it would be selfish. A woman's life is inherently full of sorrow, having such an opportunity and experience was rare for her. That day, I timed it perfectly, knowing she'd disembark at the dock. But I waited a long time without news of her return. Later, I learned she had disappeared. I searched everywhere, combing through every corner of the capital. Finally, word came that their traces had been found at the Shin family's ancestral home. Thankfully, she was unharmed. However, Shin Qing, who had always spoken of past and present lives, lay dying after that night's fire. She recounted the entire story to me in detail. She said both sisters had past lives and present ones. In that previous existence, I had taken Shin Qing away, while Shin Rong had married Wen Qinghe. Shin Qing claimed I had loved and cherished her in that past life. But I didn't believe it. Even if I knew nothing of my former existence, it was impossible for me to have loved her. Yet unease lingered within me. I made a point of visiting the prison. When Qinghe sat half dead in the corner, though his features were rather handsome. This man, in my past life, he had actually become Shinrong's husband. He was sentenced to execution. I spared his life and ensured Shin Qing's survival. As long as I lived, neither of them would die. Marry Shinrong? Does Wenqinghe even deserve her? The end.